A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mungu Shampagi. We'll be discussing major events that continue to dominate news headlines during the week, and we will be discussing, of course, Uganda Airlines, long awaited, is about to begin its maiden flights. And from what we hear, routes open to Uganda Airlines. Nairobi, Entebbe, Nairobi, it has been the most expensive route anywhere in the world, by the way. And Kenya Airways has been making a killing out of this route, but now Uganda Airlines, its reintroduction is going to cut into this and targeting this very, very crucial route. I think Kenya Airways has been making about five flights every day into Entebbe, into and out of Entebbe every day. Then Uganda Airlines has secured rights to fly into Dar es Salaam, into Arusha, into Mogadishu, into Bujumbura, and Juba are the ones that say they are ready to host the Uganda national carrier. What does this mean? When do we expand? I also understand that the second aircraft is supposed to be arriving any moment soon. We will continue to discuss the saga around Uganda Telecoms. The latest being the president writing to State Minister for Finance in charge of investments, Evelyn Anite, and telling her to conduct an audit into Uganda Telecoms. Can that audit hold legally? Where does that put the controversy that's been going on? Where does that put the controversy, the appointment or the instructions given to the Attorney General, to the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Kahindo Tafire, to oversee what is going on at Uganda Telecoms? We'll discuss a little bit of that. 400 bishops from across the African continent and Madagascar are meeting in Kampala today. SECAM was the SECAM conference started, the symposium of African bishops started today at Rubaga Cathedral. Very, very interesting, big meeting hosted by the Catholic Church in Uganda. Will be running until next Sunday. We'll be discussing that. President Yoweri Museveni was there, Archbishop Luanga, and the archbishops, cardinals, archbishops, and bishops from across the African continent meeting to discuss on the 50th anniversary of the launch of SECAM, which started here in Kampala in 1969. We'll discuss a little bit of that. And the controversy around the coffee bill, the new coffee bill. It's been discussed here. We'll continue to discuss that. With me tonight, a couple of journalists. One of them is almost a former journalist. Almost a former journalist. So let me start with the journalist. Jeff Mbanga is business editor at The Observer. Jeff, very nice to have you.
Good to be back, Charles. Thank you.
And we also have Joel Senyonyi. Joel, until he left here, was a producer for this show and a journalist with this station, and now spokesperson for People Power. Is that the correct description?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. It's almost surreal. It feels odd being here. But I'm happy to be here as an OB.
Being on this side of things. Because you know you're on the other side of things.
I know, so I'm glad to be back as an OB.
As an OB.
It feels good to be back.
Very nice to have you. Jeff, let's start with this question of Uganda Airlines. It's been long talked about, long in waiting. There's been kind of a lull in public debate and the excitement since the other aircraft was brought in, and they talk about starting maiden flights, effectively putting Uganda Airlines back into the air.
The latest is that they start, I think they'll start in August. The flights will start in August. And that's because they've been trying to get an operating license from the Civil Aviation Authority. There are a couple of factors that they have to go through, the safety issues and all that kind of stuff. So that has taken...
The certification process.
So that has taken some bit of time, but I think they're supposed to be getting in later this month, if I'm stand corrected. But we think that they'll start next month. Whether it's still a viable option, a venture, that's still,
Isn't
needs
that
to be seen.
Water under the bridge already, given the preparation that has gone on? Sometime back, we had Maxwell Kantande in here, and we had a discussion with him about the numbers, about the business viability and other things. And he seemed to have quite a good understanding of why you need to have the Uganda Airlines back in the air. But given the investment that this country has already made so far in preparations, I think the discussion is, how do they move forward? What do they do with the routes they have? One of the most contentious will be the Nairobi route. It's been a cash cow for Kenya Airways. Now they got to fight over it.
Yeah.
Is this, do you think Uganda Airlines is prepared enough to enter into these route fights and actually win?
I mean, the way national carriers operate is that they'll need to engage in some bit of protectionist policies. So they'll have to make it as difficult as possible for Kenya Airways to operate on that route. I mean, we had Air Uganda operating that route, and we all know what happened to Air Uganda. The good thing is that Conwell Moleya, the former head at Air Uganda, is back at...
yes, Conwell.
Conwell Moleya is back at Uganda Airlines, so he knows this route.
Sorry, I was actually mistaking Maxwell Kantane. Maxwell was at UNHCR, not
Conwell
Moleya, yes.
Yeah, so he understands that route and everything that goes on there. So you think...
Conwell was with Uganda Air?
With Air Uganda.
Air Uganda, yes.
Yeah, he was with Air Uganda. Yeah. He's now back at
Uganda Airlines.
He's now an advisor
at Uganda Airlines. But the thing is that national carriers depend on sort of trying to frustrate the private sector. Now, because KQ, that is one of the most profitable routes for KQ. So and
the most expensive for flyers, for people flying travelers on that.
So I think any potential tendencies from the government of Uganda trying to impose some rules, some taxes, some aggressive policies against KQ may turn into a political question. Don't be surprised if...
But can you apply that? Because they are almost reciprocal in a way, and I want to turn to you, Joel. You're almost operating a reciprocal arrangement. KQ is a national carrier for Kenya. Uganda Airlines is a national carrier for Uganda. So and you're dealing with the same route, so you're not going to land anywhere else. If you are very restrictive back home in Entebbe,
they'll do the same.
They can do the same to you when you get to Jomo Kenyatta International.
Expectedly. You see, Charles, it's good to look at the history of how we got here, saying that Uganda Airlines should be revived, which ideally should be a good thing, because this government literally killed it and everybody was disappointed. So for the sake of legacy and a couple of other reasons, President Museveni said, let me revive this thing, to show that I also have some worker, as young people like to call it nowadays. But the challenge with that, in my view, is that it was not very well thought out, it was not very well planned. Many times, unfortunately, for our government, they tend to shoot first and aim later. And that happens many times. There's a time Ministry of Finance was complaining and saying, look, the president goes across the country making promises, and then he comes back to us and says, make this money available. And we're saying, we don't have it, your excellency, first consult us, and then you can go and plan and make promises. So that's the challenge. When you look at many airlines in this continent of ours, aside from Ethiopian Airlines, which by the way has also begun to have issues lately, it's been the only profitable one for a very long time. South African Airways has struggled for a very long time. Uganda Air is heavily subsidized by their government. Kenya Airways, there's a time it was going under, and they're just trying to now
if they don't give them the handling fees, they will still continue to struggle.
Without a doubt, yeah. So here we are, we're coming in with 2 bombardiers, and the reasons again, and we want to jostle for space with Kenya Airways. I think it's going to be a very tall order, because like you're saying, for us to operate, we have got to come to an understanding. We cannot bully them, because they have been at this for much longer. They have got jumbo jets. We're talking about 2 bombardiers. They have the benefit of experience and all of this. So you don't expect that you're going to get there in and jostle them out. Yeah, you're going to come to an understanding, and Kenya is not going to cede ground just so you can flourish. That's not going to happen. Is that going to happen? Let's wait and see. I can guarantee, I could be wrong. Let me prophesy. There's too many prophets around this town. So we were meant to take off in July. For starters, you remember, the time the planes were meant to come was long delayed.
Yes.
They announced that they are coming. They did not come. Then they postponed and all of that, like is usually the case.
There were promises should have been in the air in September last year.
There you are.
And then by December, then we kept pushing.
And now they talked about July. And now they're saying, no, July won't be true ready. It's going to be August. I can almost 100% guarantee. August is going to come and end. And these bombardiers will not be in the sky. But you see, the reason behind that is because we don't plan properly. We want to rush very quickly, cause excitement, yet we have not planned. We shoot first and aim later. So it's not going to take off in August. I hope it does. I wish my country well. But I'm saying we have been here. You have just given the history. We have been here before. And so when we don't plan adequately, it does not work through. I doubt we have
From
had
what
an engagement.
I'm hearing, if it wasn't for the delays of certification processes, the other team seems to be ready.
Yeah, but,
But if you're not certified, which is a responsibility that belongs to the Civil Aviation Authority, then you can't get an aircraft into the air.
yeah, but
And actually, even Air Uganda, Air Uganda collapsed not because it failed on its own as a business. Cornwell told us here when we hosted him here, I think you were a producer for that show then. When he was here, he told us they were actually reaching a moment where they're supposed to break even. But then the regulator had their own failings with, I think, IATA and others. And then, so the hammer fell on the poor operators on the ground. And that led to the collapse of Air Uganda.
well, so now they are saying we are organized, so we want to regulate you and give you the license. But look, Charles, CAA is not away in America or that kind of thing. It's an institution here in Uganda managed by government. So I don't want to imagine that all of this was not, you know, pre-thought about and pre-seen, if you like. That yes, we are going to revive Uganda Airlines, so we will need a couple of planes, we will need all this certification and all of this. I would be disturbed, but again, I'm not surprised that it happened, and then they realized, okay, so now we need to get licensing and all these different things from CAA, but we should have foreseen all this, we should have planned. That's what I'm talking about, that we should first and aim later. So here we are, we promised people that would be starting, and now they're saying, we've not sorted out the licensing. But you knew that to get these planes in the sky, you needed to have gotten licensing. But it's the same.
Isn't that how the industry operates? I thought the process is industry dictated.
Yeah.
That you get your aircraft in here, they look at them, they test them, and then they tell you, now we can give you what you need. I know there are airlines that have been struggling to get. We did announce, I think there was a major press conference that announced the coming into the airspace of this country. Some airline called Vule. We've been waiting for it to get into the air. It has failed to get into the air more than 2 years since that press conference that announced.
Yeah, because it obviously did not have all that it needed.
It didn't have what.
But you see, it gets back to you plan. Charles, if you know you're going to qualify as a lawyer, which you're going to very soon, you know that to become an advocate of the High Court, there's a process. You finish the degree, you go to LDC, you get the postgraduate diploma, but after that, there's a process to apply for the PC. You apply to the courts of law, then you get people to recommend you. You know all of that process. So you don't get there and then realize, so now, and you know, you're scampering all over the place. You did not plan.
But okay, we can, that I hear you, because the postponements have been so much. I used to tease
and they're not about to stop.
I used to tease one of the young journalists we had at the East African, a young man called Raymond Tamale. He did a story which we ran as a headline story towards the end of the year, which was announcing Uganda Airlines returning into the air. So I kept teasing him from, I think, December 2016, through December 2017 and 2018 to ask him, you promised this thing, you promised readers.
So it
that
became
Uganda
his challenge too.
Yes, it became his challenge because I kept asking him, call the minister and ask the minister what's going on. Call the people at Uganda Airlines and ask them what's going on, because we can't have promised a lie, we as the newspaper.
I hope you qualified where it was coming from.
Yes,
Uganda
we did.
Airlines
Of course we did.
So and so.
Of course that we did. But you know, the question for us as journalists is that you need to ask, and do you believe the story? When
they keep doing follow-ups.
Yes, and when they tell you we are flying in July, and July comes and it's about to pass, you need to ask what has happened, because you owe that to your viewer, you owe it to a reader, you owe it to your listener. But let me ask, this is undoubtedly one of the most expensive routes. Entebbe, one of the most traveled, one of the most expensive. Can Uganda Airlines afford, and by how much, to cut that rate?
I mean, it's going to come down.
Flyers on that route have been paying upwards of over $300, $400.
Almost $400.
Yeah, $400.
Yeah.
For a return ticket.
Yeah, but of course it's going to come down to not just the price. Of course, they're going to come down to things like efficiency, baggage handling, time of arrival, how many flights. You know, I mean, you have 2 bombardiers, for crying out loud. You know,
there'll be 4 soon.
Okay, there'll be.
Yes, and then there'll be another 2 that come.
We can deal with 2 for now.
Buses.
Yeah, we can deal with 2 for now. I mean, it's going to be very difficult, you know, penetrating that route and trying to make money out of it. It is true. I think I still think there's still some bit of room on the Entebbe Nairobi route that Uganda Airlines can still play in. But like I said, it's going to come down to efficiency. I mean, does Uganda Airlines, first of all, have the right staff? I mean, the times of flying into Nairobi, that kind of stuff. And it will come down to politics between KQ. The way business is that KQ will not make it easy for Uganda Airlines to operate on that route. That's for sure. And so Uganda Airlines has to be ready to, to fight. Yeah.
What about the other routes available? Dar es Salaam, Arusha, Mogadishu, Bujumbura, Juba?
Of course, those are there, but I mean, how many people fly to those routes? Like Joel said, it's going to come down to traffic. Air Uganda used to fly to Dar es Salaam or Arusha or thereabout in Tanzania, and it did not make much money on those routes. They tried. Nairobi remained their most important route until when they moved out of the market. So it's going to come down to traffic, and of course the operational costs. If you're going to travel, if you're going to fly to Tanzania, how much money do you have to keep flying an empty aircraft? Half an empty aircraft to Dar es Salaam or Arusha. Does it make business sense?
The risk of taking it half empty and bringing it back quarter full.
There's also that. And I mean, the airline industry, the aviation industry is quite an expensive venture. Does Uganda, first of all, have the money to keep pumping into an airline that is flying half full or quarter full? And I said no.
But Joel, you talked about the struggles of the other airlines. Has a careful audit been done to say why is South Africa Airways, for example, struggling? It flies out of Entebbe full. Sometimes it comes back with fewer numbers, some empty seats. There are some seats on SAA that you can roll and sleep, even if you know they give they allocate you an aisle seat, but you find you alone on the row, so you can shift yourself to the window and actually afford to sleep because the others are empty. Sometimes that happens.
You can have an entire bed.
Yeah, you can have. So you have the luxuries of almost a business class when you're in economy. Kenya Airways, its troubles the industry, the market, are they management? You talked about management a lot. What is the trouble with those other aircraft that Uganda Airlines can, those other airlines rather, that Uganda Airlines can avoid?
I could hazard a guess based on what's been said, what's been written about, but what's also been said by those that have been involved in those various airlines. The buck ultimately stops with management. Look, South Africa's challenges, management challenges, are not too different from Uganda's challenges, management-wise. That at the end of the day, all the different things that have got to... You see, the airlines industry is a very sophisticated one. We can discuss and all of that, but it's extremely sophisticated. You are dealing with several human beings. You are having to interact with several other airlines and countries and all of that. And so if you don't get it right, there's going to be trouble. So even though there's not been a scientific study, audit and all of that, it is ultimately management. But here's the other thing. You see, 60% of all flights worldwide happen only within the US. 60%, you know, from one state to another, California to New York and all of that. And, you know, so the rest of the world has got a very small pool. So
40%.
Aside from management, truth be told, there's not too many Ugandans that fly. There's not too many.
The question would be, why are few Ugandans flying? Because you see, if you were flying on continental Europe, it's cheaper sometimes to fly. It's convenient. If you're flying on continental United States of America, it's easier. Well, the country, United States of America, or even continental United States of America, even including between United States and Canada, it's cheaper and more convenient. If you check, you'll find that flying within maybe new emerging bigger economies like China and a bit of the Middle East, it becomes cheaper that way. But a price of 400 United States dollars, which is almost close to 1.5 million shillings, close to 1.5 million shillings, to fly between a 45-minute route between Entebbe and Jomo Kenyatta. It becomes prohibitive. Budget airlines on this route have been able to pull it off at $130. And some analysts have said, Uganda Airlines is likely to price, we haven't seen the price list yet, but I've been told it's likely to price its ticket a return ticket to Nairobi at about $180.
Yeah,
If it prices it at $180, that's cutting it almost by more than half of what KQ is charging at the moment. And they say the mathematics can work because of the other costs that they cut off, which are related to charges around the airport. So if you cut those off, you're likely to leverage that price. One is they have made, whoever runs the airlines business in this market has made it exclusive. That it's not for everybody. And that makes airlines fail. Can Uganda Airlines avoid that? Number two, if you look at the situation of KQ, I have seen the report, the audit report into KQ. Much of it is not actually the business aspect of it. Sheer corruption.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When we
Pillage.
talk about management,
Yes,
you know,
pillage.
all of those
Corruption.
lacunas. That's why I was saying the
Has-
issues of South Africa
Yes.
are not too different from ours here.
Yes, has troubled KQ. Same as South African Airways. If you remove those and you're becoming, yes, you talk about being efficient. If you remove those and become a little bit more efficient, you're likely to have an airline that flourishes.
I don't know if we're going to do that, Charles. There's just too many examples that show we are not, either we are incompetent or we are not willing to deal with this monster called corruption. Because you see, who gets to benefit at the end of the day? Who does the handling services of Entebbe Airport? You know the answer.
There are multiple companies.
Who majorly does it? But look, at the end of the day,
actually to answer that that question, the man sold his stake in that company. So we have, I think,
He sold a stake. He did sell everything.
actually he sold
Yes.
most of that stuff,
Yes.
most of his interest in that company. So I think it's a Kuwaiti company that bought into the handling services.
Does it matter really? It doesn't matter because whoever bought, whether they are Kuwaitis or others, they'll need to recoup their money.
absolutely.
So for as long as they're still recouping their money, they will maintain, because handling services is the cash cow
Yeah.
that sustains national airlines, or where you have a hub. If Entebbe is your hub, then you recoup your money from handling services. If you don't have handling, you're struggling.
Yeah, true.
You see, the other issue, Charles, gets to be economies of scale. You have two bombardiers, and
There'll be four.
you want to break even. We are talking about what's available now.
Yes.
So you've injected about 280 billion Uganda shillings so far. You've got to inject in a lot more. So economies of scale. The reason why, you know, for example, the West America as an example, it benefits greatly and it's able to break even is because economies of scale. So they've got a couple of planes. There's too many flyers. So even if they make, just as an example, $50 as profit off each passenger, it makes sense economically. But in our case, the flyers are too few. You've got two bombardiers or very few planes. It's difficult to break even. And then, you know, couple that with management issues, pillaging, corruption, and so on.
I've actually been told, Jeff, that South Africa Airways, part of its survival is its ownership of budget domestic carriers. Yeah, because it owns Mango, it owns Fly
So they do other business.
Fly Safari. No, they have, because
They
South
do
Africa is a big country. Uganda is a small country.
Even
And when you're
economically, yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking about regional flights, you're not talking about regional flights within the country. You're talking about regional flights that go outside of the country. So you can't leverage a domestic market. You don't have that much of a domestic market within Uganda. You're talking about flying to other areas that also have competing airlines. Tanzania has significantly revived their Air Tanzania, Rwandair, KQ, of course. South Sudan doesn't have yet, but we'll move on. Only maybe just share congratulations to one very, very indigenous Ugandan airline company that has survived against all odds and now has celebrated half a century in the air. Igo Air, you got to give it to them because they've been in the air for 25 years. Others have come with bigger money, with bigger things, with big experience, but they have struggled.
Yeah, they decided,
And-
let's bite off what we can chew.
Yes.
And they're managing it.
And-
Small as it is, you know,
Yes.
few flights and so on.
And some of the facilities at the airport that Uganda Airlines will be using are facilities that Uganda Air put up. And in spite of their struggles to get into the lucrative oil business over the years, they were given a deal. I mean, they kept being tossed around before they could get it. But I've been told the other day they celebrated 25 years, and that, I think, is a big achievement. Maybe Uganda Airlines could learn something from them going forward. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be discussing issues at Uganda Telecoms. still watching The Fourth Estate, featuring Jeff Mbanga from The Observer newspaper and Joel Senyonyi, a former journalist with this station and now spokesperson for People Power. We'll be shifting our discussion to the controversy around Uganda Telecom. I've still been asking myself, why is government insisting on Uganda Telecom? Have you been able to find an answer, Jeff? We've discussed this before here on this show. The latest is President Museveni writing a letter that generated some of the most interesting controversy on social media, because people wouldn't believe that the letter was legit for a long time, and people were debating, no, it must be a fake. This has the hallmarks of a fake. And the letter was legit, telling Evelyn Anite, conduct an audit. Why is government still insisting on Uganda Telecoms?
I think...
What is that strategic interest that they keep talking about?
There's no strategic interest. I mean, there's no strategic interest in a market where you have Airtel and MTN very dominant. I mean, strategic interest would mean that UTL has a chance at, you know, clawing back some bit of a market share against those two companies, but they won't. So in terms of strategic interest, I don't think it's there, because UTL, for lack of a better description, is dead and buried for now. They have a number of assets. You know, they have masts, they have codes, they have spectrums that they own that need to be protected. In terms of conducting an audit, I mean, I find it very interesting that the president is sort of, I mean, I think Museveni is sort of torn between which side to take. And one wonders whether he actually writes those letters. There hasn't been an audit in UTL.
Well, if he doesn't write them, he signs them at least.
At least that's if he reads them. But there hasn't been an audit in UTL for quite a long time. The issue of audit into UTL is not a new thing. It's been on for a very long time. I mean, 7, 8 years, 9 years down the road, the Auditor General himself has struggled to audit UTL. And I do not think this time around there will be an audit. I think we need to...
Is the audit legal, Joel? Because the controversy has been, you've handed over this entity to an administrator. If you have handed it over to an administrator, do you retain control even when you're a shareholder? So if the president is telling Anite to order an audit, and Jeff is talking about it, you've been struggling for the last so many years, even before the administrator came in, you couldn't do an audit of UTL. Now you want to do an audit, but you're issuing what appears like parallel instructions to different people. What game exactly are you trying to play here?
But it's what the president always does, divide and rule. So let these guys flex muscles, tear each other apart, then I come in to try and, you know, calm the waters. So you are empowering somebody with one hand and taking away that power with the other hand. So you make Anita feel and seem like she's in charge, when literally she is not in charge.
Before she had felt like she had been reduced.
Of course, she imagined she had arrived. You see, there are people who are on the, I'll call it the eating table in Uganda. And there are those who take crumbs. You know, sometimes those who take crumbs, they also imagine they're on the table, when in actual sense they are not. So you saw Rukutana throw egg on her face, literally. And the president seemed to buttress that, because now you get to see Bemanya, his contract gets renewed several months way in advance, as if to say, calm down, this guy is not going anywhere. Then here comes the president again, writes to Anita, you know, make sure an audit gets to happen. Is he really interested in an audit? I'm not too sure. I hope the truth eventually comes out. At some point it should. There should be a lot more than meets the eye with this UTL thing. That there are certain persons that want this thing for themselves, and so they will try and protect it, make sure no audit gets to happen, perhaps. But then at the end of it all, you want to show that, you know, some work is ongoing. So the Anites will make noise, and again, I don't know if her intentions are very well placed and how orderly she is. But you see, again, there was a jostling of power. I'm the one in charge. She says, I am the minister, and I'm the one in charge. But then there's a shareholder. A shareholder, again, is an owner. So the person who is in charge, who is an administrator, is meant to run this thing. Yeah, you are an employee of the shareholder, so to speak.
Are you an employee of the shareholder or of the creditors of the company? Because the powers have shifted. The shareholder has failed to manage their business in a manner that gives confidence to creditors that they can recoup their money. So once an administrator is appointed, it means the first priority is forget about the shareholder. Shareholder, you brought this company, which is an independent legal entity, into the mess into which it is at the moment.
Yeah, but
so try as much as possible, recoup whatever you can, settle those who gave you're indebted to, because you're separate entities. The shareholder and the entity that's created are two separate entities. Recoup as much as possible. There's the taxman in one corner. There are the other creditors. In this case, you have the others who have provided interconnectivity. So MTN is claiming a lot of money from UTL. Airtel is claiming a lot of money from UTL. Other suppliers are claiming a lot of money from UTL. Those are the ones you're supposed to satisfy first. If the shareholder comes back and appears to be playing an overbearing role into the administration activities, which I think is Bemanya's biggest argument, saying, look, you gave me a responsibility, let me execute it, because you have no control, you shouldn't have control over me. It's court that should have control where things are.
Yeah, but you see, at the end of the day, there's a government. Whether or not it functions is a different thing altogether. Legally, and maybe technically, and I could be wrong, because when an administrator comes in, it is to say, look, this person has not done a good job, so manage this for now. Until that company is wound up, legally and technically, and I could be wrong, the shareholders still own that company. So, of course, there's creditors who have to be offset, even when the company is wound up. Ideally, the creditors will be given, their bit. If there's whatever remains, the shareholders take it. So they are, in the literal and technical sense, still the owners.
Yes, but they will be below the pecking order.
Yeah, without a doubt. So ultimately, who gets to call the shots? Look, even when the administrator says, allow me to do my job, but then again, the administrator is not above reproach. There should be an audit to happen. But the Auditor General has been frustrated. No audit has happened, and looks like it's not going to happen in time soon. So what exactly are they hiding?
Jeff, whose instructions do you think?
That's a very good question.
Yes.
What exactly are they hiding?
Who has been given what instructions? Because the instructions given to Kahindo Tafire, the instructions given to the instructions or the powers that Rukutana and Biaruhanga feel they have, and the instructions given to Anite. I'm just imagining what happens in that cabinet when you're discussing, when the topic of Uganda Telecom comes up. The president said, cabinet must be involved in any decision on which investor takes over Uganda Telecoms. And that's an instruction to, not the Minister for Investment, who is directly responsible, but an instruction to the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Then the Attorney General and his deputy are telling you different things. Then you have the Minister of Finance, which has an interest and has been watching what's going on. So I'm just wondering, how do you have a discussion about a company like that in cabinet even?
By the way, UTL is now 100% government owned.
Yes.
So it's even their company. But even within themselves, they don't seem to agree on what needs to be done. I think there's been a lot of asset stripping, if I may call it that, in UTL, whereby some assets have either gone missing or have been sold off dubiously, and an audit is actually going to reveal so many of those things. And I mean, Anita has said it in her numerous letters that, I think some assets are being sold in a very shoddy way. So she's sort of pointing at something, and that's why she's really pushing for that audit. And that audit will not come out because it's going to go down with a few names. So the YC UTL, and like Joel is saying, I mean, the president seems to be playing politics with us, sort of trying to play on our heads, saying this, putting this. I think he's playing a chess game. And for me...
Is it a game of chess or musical chairs?
I think he's playing a game of chess with that company. But I honestly do not see an audit happening right now.
So what do you think he was intending to achieve by writing to Anita that?
It
felt Anita was sulking and feeling like she had been... all her efforts had been rendered to waste.
No,
and then you appease and say, no, my daughter, I haven't. You still have some powers, please.
I think
we can use that on the minister because the president said it when she did the kneeling act a few years ago. So.
Yes, I think Anita has been the president's. How can I call her? How can I call her? I don't want to call her how can I call her? But I mean, she's been on the front line trying to fight the
I can guess the word you're trying to look for.
Yeah, but I think she's been on the front line trying to fight the president. So I mean, she's done that in EGCL, trying to get a chairperson for EGCL. She's done it at Uganda Investment Authority. You know, she's been involved in so many fights and battles. She's always there on the front line. I'm not surprised she's at UTL now trying to fight that. So the president needs her for some of those battles. And I think even when he doesn't agree with her, I mean, he kind of tries to protect her a little bit going forward. But moving ahead,
Can she win? Can she win her latest round of struggles?
It's not up to her. That's not up to her whether she'll win or not. It's going to be whether the president can allow her to win or not. I mean, ultimately, UTL will come down to one man, and that's President Museveni. I mean, he'll decide what to do with that company, and I don't think himself. I don't think he's going to push for that audit that much, even if he's written.
So you think he's appeased her, sufficiently massaged her ego?
Sort of.
She knows she's not been thrown under the bus.
Yes. I think he's done that. She can now sleep soundly, but I don't think there will be an audit in that company. Do you
think there will be an audit in UTL?
Absolutely not. Look, Anita, with all due respect, does not have the competence to conduct an audit, because the president was instructing Anita to conduct an audit. If the president is interested in an audit happening, he should, one, instruct the Auditor General. He actually doesn't have to, because the Auditor General, that's his mandate. But he should make it possible for him to. So when that gets to happen, that the Auditor General gets to have the door opened for him to enter and do an audit, then you know the president is serious.
But later you have a directive from the president that says conduct an audit. So if Anita sat down, and like she had done before, and writes a letter, an instruction, say, reference is made to this letter from the president, who gave us a directive to conduct an audit. So you, Auditor General, conduct an audit. And by copy of that letter, sends to the administrator of UTL, sends to the Attorney General, sends to the Minister of Finance, sends to the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, and says, I am acting on instructions from the president, who gave a directive that we conduct an audit.
But you see, Charles,
does it happen?
When you read the president's letter, you could clearly see it was nebulous, it was not clear, and intentionally so. So Anita conduct an audit. If the president really wanted the Auditor General to come in, it would have been very clear. But look, even when Anita does that writing, the Auditor General is not going to be allowed space. Anita might now say, well, I have some powers, the president has given me instructions, let me try and do one or two things. It's not going to happen. And I oversee, I can prognosticate that the president will again throw egg at Anita's face. You remember what happened with Justice Pamugemelere? You have all the powers. Make sure you deliver, you know, crack the whip and all of this. Some UPDF juniors, you know, literally shut the door in her face, and she says, look, I'll take it to the president. And the president, a few days later, is awarding them medals. The president had said here in Kampala that...
You know what's most interesting is that the president, they were not just awarded medals. It's the first time people received medals and called a press conference to talk about the medals they had received.
There you are, here in Kampala.
and not anywhere else, but at the Uganda Government Media Center.
But of course, he's sending a statement. He's saying, look, you need to calm down. The president, not very long ago, when Jennifer Musisi was still in charge, he said, look, I wish I could have many more Jennifer Musisis. You know, he, in his own words, said, Jennifer has helped me to chase the rats out of Kampala, whatever the rats were. Very short while later, he loses within Kampala, and he says, look, this one here is the one who made me fail. After she decides, you gave me power, I cannot operate, let me go and do other things. This Jennifer here, I gave her too much money to do a job, she even failed to do the job. That is going to happen to Anita, you can be sure. The future of Uganda Telecoms and the telecommunications industry, we'll need to, we actually need to ask Anita, what happened to the smartphones they were supposed to be assembling? We're still waiting for that. They made a few, I remember.
I haven't seen them, I don't know the brand name.
They said, I mean, they said it was such a funny thing. They said that they would use, is it coltan, which is a mineral in Uganda, which is used to do, I think, chips into the smartphone. But you just, even the amount of coltan that we produce in this country.
Uganda doesn't produce coltan. Coltan comes from if you follow the Justice, if you follow the Justice Porter, if you read the Justice Porter Commission report and another one
DRC.
by, into DRC, and another report by the UN panel of experts on the DRC, I think Ambassador Mahmoud Kassem, Mahmoud Kassem or something like that, who probed Uganda's involvement in the DR Congo. Over that case, where we lost to the International Court of Justice, ICJ. A lot of the coltan comes from across the border in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But no smartphones can be produced anywhere in the world without coltan.
Yes.
It's a key mineral.
Yeah.
It's a key. It provides a key component to the making of smartphone chips.
Well, the Chinese said they would get the coltan from within the country. So one wonders where they would get it, where they would get it from. But yeah. We don't have so much coltan coming into this market. So even the smartphone idea, I mean, it's just another thing of sort of, pulling a wall.
That wouldn't be, I don't know what you
before
think, Joel, but that wouldn't be a problem for me. Wherever the raw materials for making things come from is not important. What is important is if you promise something and say, we're going to be producing this. That was at a time when Anita was trying to show there is hope, there is a lot more potential in this thing called Uganda Telecoms. We can do things to turn it around. The thing is, are you able to deliver on that promise?
Poor Anita was trying to build a castle in the air. Look, I'm reminded of how we promised Ugandans that would be manufacturing cars by 2018. You remember? I don't know how far we have gone. So there was this whole excitement. And I had an engagement with a couple of people.
When did you last check at the compound of Kira EV?
Well, we are waiting to see them.
No, you should go and pay them a visit and see what they're doing.
I had a discussion with some people, and there was this whole, we are manufacturing cars. I said, all right, look, I'm a patriot, I wish my country well, but let's be realistic. Was this car manufactured in Uganda? Was it assembled in Uganda? And so there gets to be a whole debate. But it gets back to our comparative advantage as a country. We keep running away from that. Want to do literally everything and nothing at the end of the day. So let's try out the other. If the Americans are doing it, we also can. If they're doing it, can we focus on what we have a comparative advantage in? And there are those key areas. We keep running away from because of this whole modernization and whatever the case might be. But even more importantly, as we do all of this, let's make sure we have a quality population, invest in the human resource of our people. That's not happening by and large. So I want to jump onto something to cause excitement, to show that we have also arrived. We are in 2019. But before long, it gets short-circuited. Why? We did not plan for it. It's too humongous a task, and we imagine the other guys got there in a day. No. So it shouldn't be a thing of, I also can, so let me start. Incredible young people. You've talked about, Kira EV. Incredibly gifted young people. We need to help them as a country. But let's be a lot more realistic. But let's also look out for what our comparative advantages are. Charles, there are things that you do extremely well. There are things that you don't do. When you host a show, I make sure I'm home early to watch it. Just if tomorrow you call me for a music show, you're launching an album, I will not come even if you pay me to come, because you can't sing.
You haven't tried me.
But you focus on what you're good at and you excel at that.
There is a question, I think it raises a very valid point. The problem is not trying to do things. For me, Ugandans have the potential to do things. Many things. Absolutely. The problem is government trying to jump onto everything when it says it's running a free market economy, it's running a private sector-led economy. Because the idea of the car, the Kira EV, the talent of those young people, the dedication of their professors, when government comes in to give them a hand, what kind of hand do you come to give it? And how do you give it? Like the presidential banana initiative that has been struggling for long, you can pump in money, but to get a product out and see it to some level, sometimes it's not as smooth a road as that. So do you need a government-run company to tell you we're now going to produce smartphones? Do you need government? How should government be coming into some of these initiatives to support them? That is a different ballgame. We did run stories and we've been following. We need to do an audit and check. A neighboring country started assembling cars. From the German manufacturer, Rwanda. I don't know how many cars they have produced. I don't know who's buying them. I don't know where the market is for them. The last I heard was that, yes, they were trying, but the orders that were coming in were only orders from government. There were no private people making
expected
orders.
Because it's going to be too expensive,
yes,
for the local folks to take it up. But at the end of the day, Charles, you also know that government is very bad at doing business. Extremely terrible
when
at
it chooses
doing
to
business.
be louder.
Yeah, because that's the track record really, so they can't pull it off.
But I think it's not even just that the government is terrible at doing business, but sometimes our government even fails to do a bad job You know, at least, you know, like, you know, Rwanda, I think when Rwanda tries to do something, you can see it. You can see they're trying to do something, trying to push towards something. But, you know, I think in Uganda here, we have so many projects that we can name. I think there was at one point there was supposed to be a coffee processing plant in Jinja, the banana initiative in Bushenyi, I think.
It ran into a brick wall.
It actually does exist, I've been told. It
is there. There's something.
And I've seen some products on the supermarket stores called Toke. But whether that is what we expected out of it or not is a different
thing. There's a Nakawa Naguru housing project. I mean, there's so many things that we can actually list here.
There's one down here across the road.
Which one?
Remember when children were evicted? Shimoni.
Yeah, Shimoni.
To put up a Chogam hotel.
Something else. So there are so many things that government has tried to put its hand on, and they've actually not moved forward. So with the smartphones at UTL, it's also another example that another plan that they've come up with, and that will not come to fruition. Definitely.
And I think with UTL, the minister was running away from the real issues at UTL without confronting the actual questions. Because the questions, you talked about it, asset stripping and how that company has been run over the years. Why government refused to privatize it outright, and now the competition on who brings in the private investor, who brings in the person to replace now the Libyans and buy out a stake in Uganda Telecoms is the bigger question.
Exactly.
It's a competition around who's running
interests.
Who calls the shots?
Yes, I will take a commercial break. When we come out of the break, we'll be talking about it's the thing that we've just ended with. When addressing the 50th anniversary of SECAM, President Museveni carried a good message, which he carried from COMESA: productivity of Ugandans and consumption of Ugandans. He did talk about that, and I thought for all those spiritual leaders gathering to have a discussion on the African continent for the next, do an audit over the last 50 years and maybe plan for the next 50 years, and the control they have over their followers, over the Catholic Church and its influence among the people that they follow, who follow them, is an important message for them to queue over, to discuss, and say, how do you move these people into more productive people? How do you make them into consumers that can take on what others are producing, what is being produced? How do you turn them into a market? We'll discuss after a very short commercial break. Welcome back this last segment of the Fourth Estate. I have some messages here. Somebody says, talk about it. KQ sales office at Entebbe Airport is currently closed. Passengers are told to sort minor issues like change of reservation at the Kampala office 40 kilometers away. Uganda Airlines could take full advantage of that. That's an interesting one. The questions have been about how the competition is responding to this, because whichever way you look at it, you can put some pressure. And if you take away the most profitable route from a player, you could have a breakthrough. On Uganda Airlines, our country is like a construction site with everyone busy, but with no architectural plan. How many priorities do we have? Is it power? Is it roads? Standard gauge railway or OWC? On UTL, is the president's letter saying privatization units should now be converted to reacquisitions unit or Uganda? Okay, my friend, sending this message. Let me say a few other messages before we go into SECAM. And Mutanje Abdu, I think, is sending this message. Let me see. Okay. I lost that one. I lost the message. Yes, I am watching UNN TV now. We met. Okay. This is a message I should have read outside because. Okay. We'll do with those for now. Let me check another message here from Someone, Joel had stopped me from doing these things when he was producing.
And now I'm not in charge anymore. So
I know you are. After the breakup of East African Community, did Amin purchase the Boeings on credit? Is this new Uganda Airlines flagship economically viable? Someone is asking. Do you still discuss economic viability or management competence for Uganda Airlines at this stage?
But they are connected, are they not? Because if you fail to manage competently,
That's a message from Tom
it's not
Boyjana.
going to happen viably. There was an issue by the way recently, because you see, Parliament said we are going to give you 280 billion shillings to buy these bombardiers on condition that when you're appointing the board, we must be kept in the loop. So Cabinet approves the board, and recently Parliament, and I saw the Honourable Elijah Cooper saying, wait a minute, we have not looked at who the board members are in the sense of us vetting them, and there was a bit of a clash because Cabinet is saying we are the ones in charge, but there's Parliament which is meant to give oversight. So it's just so much confusion anyway.
Okay. And Bernard Imperi is watching us and says, isn't there a way the government can repossess handling services? This is a big source of income.
It has already been sold to a creative firm.
But even previously, big source of income to who? To Ugandans?
Yes.
Yes,
No.
it's sustained. The handling services to collapse Uganda Airlines, that we can discuss openly here. To collapse Uganda Airlines, handling services were taken away. And the moment handling services were taken away, the company couldn't survive. No matter who was running it, it wouldn't survive because it had lost. Someone says, tell Joel he has a nice shot and good arguments.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, we need to move on. 400 bishops from across the African continent and Madagascar are meeting in Kampala, and I need to be clear about this. These are members of the Episcopal Conference, so belonging to the Catholic Church, who are meeting. You have cardinals, you have archbishops, and you have bishops and other clergy who are gathered in Kampala for the whole of this week to discuss matters to do with the Catholic Church on the African continent and Madagascar. The president was there this morning, and his message was interesting because he said he had intended to attend the opening ceremony in Munyonyo. He had also intended to attend I think to do the final service in Namugongo, but he realized his other schedules wouldn't allow him, so he begged to be allowed to go and say hello to the people at Rubaga Cathedral this morning. And he went to Rubaga Cathedral, they gave him space and he spoke to them. But the message he carried to their eminences, to their graces, and to their lordships was productivity of the African people. Now, this is a subject that we hardly ever get to discuss. We are praying a lot. Churches are full. Even when they introduce new, depending on which faith you belong to, masses or services, lunch hour prayers, early morning prayers, evening prayers, overnights. The population they're serving, the people they serve, remain very poor. And investing all faith in God alone without activity, I don't know when the church is going to begin translating their discussion to say, no, wait a minute. You need God to support you, to bless you, but you also need effort. Now, people are spending more time in church than doing physical work, than doing actual work. Do you think this is the message the president carried for SECAM holds something? And SECAM has existed for now 50 years. What is its footprint beyond delivering the word of God?
I mean, for the second meeting that is happening in Kampala this week.
And don't mix your strong beliefs and the discussion.
A strong Catholic.
He's a very strong Catholic.
But how can I not? But anyway, this is for me. This is a special time because my church, the church that I pray in, the Munyonyo Matters Shrine, St. Andrea Kagawa, is going to be elevated to a minor basilica, and that's going to be the 3rd in Uganda and the 23rd in Africa. So that's a good thing for us there. But back to the message of the church, where there are so many people in church, people not being productive. I want to disagree with that. I think people are not spending too much time in church. I think the church has evolved.
Okay, not in church, in prayer.
In prayer.
Yes, the business, prayer has become a business.
Yeah,
You may not say it for the traditional churches,
yes,
but for, I mean, everybody who is preaching the word of God, who's talking about invoking the word of God, is in the same business.
I don't want to call it for, a business for the Catholic Church, but I think this conference is happening at a time when, I mean, there are issues around morals in society. I mean, the church is battling so many things, you know. I mean, we just have a case of Brother Mugarura who was just murdered the other day. There are issues around his sexuality. There are issues of issue of celibacy among priests. Can that happen? So I don't want to look at it as a business. I want to look at it as this is, I mean, it's happening at a good time where some of these discussions, I mean, should take center stage, and the church should deal with most of those issues that that they are grappling with. And I hope that some of these messages will come out of the out of this episcopal conference that is happening in Munyonyo.
Do you think, Joel, that we should challenge the church broadly, in its broadest sense, to pay a little bit more attention to helping government efforts and other efforts to mobilize the population for economic empowerment, for better productivity, for the president was talking about consumption and things like that? Is that a message that should be at the center? The president was, I don't know if he was joking or not, he said, you see, if you have more productive people, they'll give more offertory.
Look, as a Christian, a Pentecostal, by the way, I know that God blesses the works of my hands. It is scriptural, so I've got to work. A pastor friend of mine likes to say something I think is incredible. That church begins on Monday, Sunday is garage time. That's why it's called a service. You go to be serviced, but then you do church on Monday when you get to your workplace. So get there on time, do what you're supposed to do. This business of going for lunch hour from midday to 3 p.m., your boss did not hire you to pray, yeah? So I think we need to keep letting our Christians out there know that it's important
Our Christians are Muslims, are
well, all religious people, really, pretty much. But I'll say this. I find it interesting that finally the president, you know, previously he told religious leaders, look, mind your business, baptize people, talk about your God. You know, that's all you should stick to.
Why? Because business.
They were saying, look, as religious leaders, as councillors of people, but also as citizens, we are concerned about many goings on. So if there's injustice and all these different things, they must talk about them. So the president realizes these guys wield a lot of authority. They have all these masses coming to them every Sunday, so they should talk to them about some other, you know, I like to call them practical stuff. Economics, that guys, go out there and work, all right? Don't go to the prayer mountain every single day, the whole day. It's problematic,
the whole week,
yeah?
the whole month.
So they should talk about economics. Religious leaders should talk about injustice, you know, because they have all these leaders, these politicians that go to their services. Tell these guys that for heaven's sake, do what is right, all right? Let's deal with corruption. Let's deal with the injustices. These things have got to be talked about. So without a doubt, tell the congregations as well that, guys, we need to work. We need to become practical about this animal, this amazing animal called religion. That it's okay and important to pray, but let's get our hands dirty and get to work. But is it a question of just religious leaders? I'd like to think that when you have broken systems and all of that, we, for example, as Uganda, we don't have a quality, what I call a quality population. And once that gets to be the case, there's not so much productivity that happens because your population is not a quality one. Quality in the sense, there's a time the president was saying, look, you know, let's increase in population, and like China, our economy will grow. But you see, the Chinese are investing heavily in their population, quality-wise. You know, they'll train these guys and then make sure they can add value. We're not doing that here, and that is why we're struggling. When you look at our balance of payments as a country, imports versus exports, it goes to show for the fact that we are largely not a quality population. We import almost twice what we export. 2017, 2018, we exported to the tune of $2.8 billion US. We imported $5.5 billion worth. Now that's almost twice as much. Why? Because we are not a quality population in the real sense. And so we are not able to produce what should happen. So we are encouraging young people, you must go to Makerere, come rain, come shine. Even if you go there to do a degree in underwater bubble blowing, go there. And yet this person would be a lot more productive They would add a lot of more value if they went to a technical institute and learned carpentry, for example, and learned tailoring. There's a place called Chiembe, opposite the old taxi park.
That's an interesting one you have introduced. A bachelor of underwater bubble blowing.
For as long as it's a degree, and then you don't know what to do with it, and yet we can do skills. Government keeps talking about skills, but we need to get practical.
You're talking about that Chiembe place? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Chiembe place. You go, you interact with those tailors, you'll be amazed at how much money they make as compared to young people who are roaming around looking for jobs, some sitting behind desks and so on. So we need to get practical about these things. Yeah, otherwise it's not going to be.
You know that call for practicality. The president was talking about it, production, and which is practicality, and we were talking about that discussion earlier. The priorities and how government chooses to invest. Instead of going to those Chiembe guys, government pumped a lot of money into some character called Velupilai Kananathan.
TriStar
Apparels. I don't know what happened.
Whenever I pass by that place in Bogolovi, I look at that structure and my heart bleeds.
No, I still look at the money because I think government pumped in about $11 million.
Yeah, and
$11 million, and that many years ago, in early 2000, that money would have meant.
And there's never been proper accountability.
Nteja Simu is watching us and says people are spending too much time in church as opposed to working productively because Pentecostal churches have promised them miracles. You said you're Pentecostal?
Yes, I am.
Yes, respond to Nteja Simu.
Yeah, you see, for every fake, there's got to be what is legit. So the fakes will obviously be there. I have trouble with some of them. When the pastor tells you have to drink this water for you to, I don't know, get riches and all of that nonsense, it's absolute nonsense.
When holy oil is being sold.
Yeah, and all of those different things. You know, I'm glad where I go. While the pastor will read the Bible, I read it for myself too. I interpret it, and I can. There's also logic, because again, while faith is that I believe, all right, faith does not mean your brain is removed at the end of the day. So when a pastor tells you, there's a South African pastor who was selling visas to heaven, first class, second class, and people were scampering, and these are elites, you know. Another one, I think it was in TZ, was making people eat grass. I mean, they do all manner of crazy things. Guys, let's use our heads also, yeah? We believed Christ, and we must have faith without seeing our Lord and Savior, but we know he exists. But let's use our heads. It's important.
There's God's office somewhere.
And somebody gets a phone and then calls and says they are talking to God. Are you kidding me?
African Union has a plan to open the continent skies in the next year. Uganda Airlines will be very viable, especially with regional routes like Nairobi, Juba, Kisangani, Goma, and it will open trade in the region for Uganda. We're discussing 50 years of SECAM and our religiousness. Let me come back to you.
But you know, the church is also at the forefront of productivity, you know?
Yes. That's
I mean, they've got, you know, huge, vast amounts of land.
The Catholic Church is the most landed in the world.
Exactly. They have a lot of land. I mean, they've gone into the financial industry. The bank, Centenary Bank. The church is so committed to productivity that even when government tried to introduce Islamic banking, some members of the church were a little bit uncomfortable with that. So you can see that they're trying to remain productive and relevant economic-wise in the country.
Well, the church can be very productive. Does that pass on to the parishioners and other people?
I mean, that's the market. I mean,
Yeah,
the
because I'm thinking about that. I honestly think, and I agree with you, when you go to church, your brain doesn't get removed, but the church has so much power that it can mobilize. I know of a reverend father where I was growing up, who used to tell people, you're carrying all these things and bring them to me. You're carrying eggs, you're carrying your chicken, you're carrying other things and bring them to me. I'm a reverend father. I am being taken care of by the church. I live at the church, I'm being taken care of. First feed yourself, first feed your family. Sell these eggs and get school fees so that you don't bring me your eggs and then come to me to beg for school fees for your children. Don't bring me your chickens and then come back to me to say, Father, please help me to take care of my children.
But anyhow, again, this should be for starters 10%, you know. It's problematic when you keep taking everything. I mean, so they start 10% offertory, which is a good thing to do because church has got to run its activities too and all of these different things. But yes, I agree. You know, this business of take your land title so they can pray blessings upon you and so on. Again, let's use our heads. Back. Of course, are you kidding me?
I realize one thing. Maybe the passage of time, for politicians, they would think that people forget so easily. And Joel raises this. When the president gives a double message to people he has bashed before and told them, stay in your lane, don't get into the you baptize. Have you seen me coming to baptize people? You remember when he made those comments?
Yeah,
Now
sure.
he's telling them, they are leaders on either side. They are political leaders, they are you religious leaders. You help us to do this, you help us to do the other. Can a clear line be drawn and say, you keep in your lane, talk only, when you talk about if you are supporting our efforts on operational wealth creation, we are in line. But if you cross and begin asking some sections of the new the proposed coffee bill, then you're getting outside the lane. Is that, can he manage the balance?
It's
there?
it's a bloodline. Whether he likes it or not, politics and business go hand in hand. So when the president encourages the church to venture into productive ventures, when
encouraging their parishioners
to
be productive,
which is more like the church, because the parishioners are, that's the church.
Yes.
More like without the parishioners you have no church. So when the president is encouraging them to get into productive means, you have to question whether he is actually being very honest with that kind of statement, because at the end of the day, business and politics have to go hand in hand. If you're going to introduce a coffee bill that is going to affect the lives of so many farmers, of so many Christians, then definitely they'll need a voice to speak on their behalf, and that's where the church is going to come through and speak that. If you have a land law that's going to affect the ownership of the land tenure system, where the church actually owns a big chunk of that asset, then the church has to come through, and their message will have to touch on the politics of the day. So again, it is still a dicey issue. For as long as we allow the church to speak their mind, to say whatever they need to say, then you can encourage the parishioners to get into productive means.
Okay, but you don't even have to allow them, in the sense of allow the church to, because you see, for starters, they're citizens too. They are bothered by the goings on. Yeah, so if you tell them, encourage your parishioners to be productive and so on, why shouldn't you? Because some of your parishioners are also leaders. Why shouldn't you encourage, especially the leaders, and say, guys, as we are telling the other guys to be productive, we're telling you to not to make it difficult for them to be productive. You know, the unfair taxes and all of these different things. But you see, when they begin to talk about those, then you'll say, you're crossing the boundary.
Yes.
Which stick in your lane.
Yes.
And that can't happen. Yeah.
It's the funny thing there. Amanzuru Leslie William is watching us and says, faith without actions is evil, because it breeds not only laziness, but poverty as well, which is a prime engine of crime in Africa. So the message is good. I think Amanzuru agrees there. Just one more message and then we'll be able to move on. The Catholic Church looks at a person in terms of body and soul. Prayer deals with soul. The body requires schools, hospitals, development, etc. And sure, the Catholic Church has been on the top. Much more can be done, though. And yes, the conference is a big plus to brand Uganda. The president now clears the church to expand their job description.
But he's right. It's a good brand. It's a good marketing, tool for the country. Whether we've managed to exploit that opportunity of having all these bishops in town, that's also another issue.
Yes, that's a Gaba Bills who's sending that message. Yes. Now, let's talk about the conference itself. What does it bring to this country on matters of faith? Uganda has had it has created a place for itself in the Catholic Church, in the growth of faith. The Episcopal Conference was launched in 1969. By now, then the Pope, now Saint Paul. Yes.
In terms of influence as a country, in Rome, it elevates our status. In terms of, our voice becomes louder. We are seeing, I think Africa is the most visited, Uganda is the most visited country by a Pope. We've had 3 popes coming to this country. We have the biggest number of martyrs in the Uganda Matters. Now we are holding the 50th anniversary of the Episcopal Conference here. So there are so many things that are happening in the Catholic Church. So we need to exploit that either through things like tourism, the economy, that kind of stuff. So our voice is getting louder by the day. Yeah.
And then you also have representation right inside the Vatican of Ugandan-born priests here. Yes. When you have such a large conference, one thing I was discussing with members of my family who are members of the Catholic Church earlier this morning is, you know, the amazing thing, if this conference was being held by any other entity, you would see panic. Which makes the difference between other religious organizations and the Catholic Church. That they're able to host these people and there's no panic. Because to find accommodation for over 400 delegates is not easy. But I'm thinking that the church, the Catholic Church in Uganda, is able, within largely its own facilities, to accommodate this number. Because they have some of the best facilities. It goes down to organization and the comment someone sent about how the church is organized and what else it does in the fields of education, in the fields of health, in even productivity, by the way. They run some of the best farms where they have run some farms. They run very efficient operations out there. But if you're gathering so many religious leaders from the continent in Kampala, not just for a day, not for 2 days, it was a government conference running for only 2 days.
You would see the trouble. I mean, you saw how Chogam was a problem in 2007.
Yes, and the kinds of money, because how many delegates, how many visitors did you have for Chogam compared to this guy?
Give it to the Catholic Church. They have a level of orderliness and organization, being organized, and it's run that way for many years. Of course, they're not perfect. There are issues every so often, you know. But by and large, they are very organized, and hopefully many other churches can pick a leaf from that. Accountability and all these different things. And something that, even if you don't go to the Catholic Church and wherever it is, for example, at my church, I give money, offertory and tithe and so on, but I make sure and I can see the accountability for this. You know, we have, for example, what we call an annual business meeting, which is similar to an annual general meeting for a company. So you get to see where your money is going. At any time, I can walk into the office and ask, you know, and they can show me the books, you know, as a member of the church. And we need to keep doing this. I want to imagine that's why the Catholic Church is quite organized, because many times the parishioners, there's structures of accountability. And that should get to happen for every other entity. You know, our government struggles, like you say, because the structures, the systems are problematic. You know, we're just talking about Shogam. So you find, okay, so there's a bidding for cars and so on. Somebody has single-handedly taken that tender, and then they've got to, you know,
there's a bid for cars that becomes a problem. There is a, the tender for cars becomes a problem. There's hotels, they get tax waivers, but also which hotels get done and which get what other incentives. You have planting flowers. I remember one of the bigger controversies.
Planting flowers the day before the Queen
flowers, and you know, so many things. But this delegation, because they're only talking about 400 leaders.
But they came with several other people.
Yes, cardinals, archbishops, bishops. They're coming with whole crews of people. It's a whole team that's running this. And there is no, Kampala is normal. But life is normal and things are going on, which I found very interesting. The church I go to, actually, one of the reasons I love going to the church I go to, where I pray from, is to read in the bulletin at the back contributions of offertory, tithe for the week ended, for the last Sunday.
It's important, accountability.
Per service, every service. So in this service, in the service that ran from 7 a.m. to 9, this is what we collected. 9:30 to 11:30, this is what we got. 11:30 to 1 o'clock, this is what we got. 1 o'clock to 3, or the 3 o'clock service, this is what we got. And for me, even if you didn't give me how the money, because there is where the money, how it was used. But that you begin with the first step of telling me, this is what was collected. I can trace my 1,000 shillings contribution. If my neighbor dropped in a $1 into the offertory bag, I can trace and say, okay, Jeff was seated next to me and I saw he dropped in $1. And that $1 is reflected somewhere. And then there was Joel's $50. It is reflected somewhere. It gives you some level of comfort that at least someone is taking care to know this money doesn't come from us, it comes from other people. So we need to account for it. We need to show that we take this seriously.
And many times, by the way, you can actually see that this is where the money is going, there's these structures coming up, there's this charity work ongoing and all these different things. government has a lot to learn from some churches. I'll hasten to say.
So the president should also have gone as a student.
Without a doubt,
you know,
we give them money every so often through taxes, but there is no proper accountability. When you read the Auditor General's report every year, oh my goodness, it's painful to read. Accountability issues, money that was given, it absquatulated, it grew wings and flew, and there's no one accounting for it. But how?
The week ended, the judiciary has been struggling to explain that audit query of a toilet at 430 million. And my friend Solomon Muita saying, no, that's not the money. the toilet costs 53 million. And those are two toilets. He said those are two toilets. One in Entebbe, Entebbe Magistrates Court, which cost 43 million.
The toilet, it has Wi-Fi, what does it have?
43 million. And the other
must be processing some stuff that they don't know. I don't know.
No, but really, we must learn to be accountable as a people. And so if government is pressing it upon churches and so on, the things that you see them do, that you like about them, and now you think they are able to help you out with productivity and all that, learn. Let's learn accountability, build structures, build systems. You talk about the Catholic Church, they have got accountability structures, they know who reports to who and all these different things. It's not there, and that's why you're seeing Anita and Rukutan are flexing, because everybody thinks they're boss, no one accounts to the other, no one calls the shots, everyone does. System volongoto.
Okay, let's have your last word, Jeff, on any of the issues that we discussed.
On the issue of UTL, I mean, an audit is needed. Whether that company is going to be revived or not, an audit is needed. We need to get lessons. We need to know how to run a government company. And UTL will give us a good example of how not to run a company. And also a lesson in terms of assets. How do you manage state assets and the people who are in charge? So that we can learn lessons from it. So that the next time it shouldn't be another company. It shouldn't be National Housing. It shouldn't be any other companies that we should be running. That should be running into such kinds of problems. So an audit is needed. If the president can push for this audit, well and good. It will be good for the country.
Joel, your last word?
What would it be? Maybe a quote. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And so if you are in a position of influence, do it right. And you can always know that here I'm going astray, but many times they'll keep that way because it benefits them. You know, one of the things, and I'll say this in my capacity as spokesperson of People Power, we think that our biggest problem as a country is broken down institutions. So as opposed to big institutions, we have a big personality. We want to change that. We want to make sure that we empower institutions, make sure they are formidable, they are strong enough. There are countries, by the way, which every once in a while there will be a ridiculous leader elected. But you see, because the institutions are strong enough, the country will not run down the drain. Why? Institutions are powerful and strong enough, and they operate and they're accountable. Can we make sure that happens here? Anyhow, we shall make sure.
That's interesting coming from you, because you're still known by your lead alone, not structures, not institutions, at People Power.
There's a very
we don't know any structure who's the leader, who follows.
Matter of fact, there is, and very soon we are going to make a big announcement to the country to show you our, our folks across the country. But they have been operating like submarines. So we have coordinators across the country, and they're doing a lot of work. Much of what you see happening does not just happen magically. Yesterday we were in Gulu and Amuru. And
saw you dancing
there, yeah, that was some other function. But you don't have people on ground that do a lot of work. So they might not come on TV like Joe was saying, but a lot of work does happen there. And yeah, it's good you're saying it.
The audit is still out there on People Power and these movements. So we'll keep.
Yeah, and you're right, by the way. And it's good that you keep holding us accountable. So we keep growing and getting better and so on.
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. I'm hoping that for me, really, the president carried a very good message. He carried it. He's been consistent about what he wants to talk about, and he talked about this productivity. He quotes the example of milk production and milk consumption like all the time for the last so many years. The question is, will you allow the church to also discuss, because context is important in any discussion. So you can't tell people, go and produce, and they tell you, but we're being tear gassed, and tear gas is becoming a problem. It's even coming in our villages. And then you say, but or maybe they talk about the wave of crime, the crime wave that's going on, or they talk about questions of accountability and corruption, or they talk about governance issues, and you can't take that out and say, no, go and produce, go and produce. I hope you will be tolerant to accept that this invitation also extends to a general discussion about the people, because that's ultimately that's what will make people productive.
True.
Will make people a better quality population.
Absolutely.
You can't box people into certain corners and say, only talk about this, you can't talk about the other.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, for me, the most important lesson that came out of his interaction. And congratulations to the Catholic Church for hosting the 50th SECAM in Uganda, which is the birthplace of SECAM. Many other issues that will continue to follow right here on NTV, and especially in our subsequent programming. The debate about Asian properties, or so-called Asian properties, is a big debate that will continue to follow closely. And of course, we'll be bringing in the Senyonyis to discuss the politics and how those are shaping as we move forward. From me, thank you very much, gentlemen, for making time for the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to you all, our viewers, for joining us tonight. And always, thank you very much to the production crew that stay up late to deliver the show to you. From me, it's a good night.